My brother laughed. You make enough, you won't even notice the payments. I froze the joint accounts and bought his debt. Months later, he was calling every day just to beg for an extension. You know, there's a certain kind of betrayal that doesn't hit you right away. It's not like getting punched in the face. It's more like realizing the knife was already in your back, you just hadn't felt it yet. That's what this story is about. I'm 36, built my own business from scratch, no handouts, no shortcuts. I worked 2 jobs in my 20s, lived small, stacked every dollar, because I knew one day I'd want something better than just scraping by. My brother? Total opposite. Flashy cars, fake status, constant investments that were always one step away from failing. But you know how family is. You convince yourself you're helping, that they'll get it together eventually. I was the one who always picked up the pieces. Paid off his overdue rent once. Helped him settle a credit card mess. Even co-signed a small loan because it was just a short-term thing. Dumbest decision I ever made. And yet, back then, I didn't see where this was headed. If you've ever been the responsible one in the family, you'll know exactly what I mean. You carry the weight because, well, who else will? But what he did next? That crossed a line I didn't even think he'd dare to step over. And trust me, when I found out, everything changed. Stick around. You're gonna want to hear how deep this rabbit hole went, and how I flipped it all back on him without even raising my voice. And hey, before we dive in, hit that subscribe button if you like hearing real stories where people finally stand up for themselves. Alright, let's get into it. The thing about family is, they know exactly where to stab you, and how deep. With strangers, you see it coming. With family? You're too busy convincing yourself. They'd never do that. My brother's always been that guy, charming, irresponsible, always playing the victim, and somehow always landing on his feet because someone else cushioned the fall. Most of the time, that someone was me. I kept telling myself, he's blood, he'll figure it out. My parents? They made excuses for him too. He's just going through a rough patch, give him time. Meanwhile, his rough patch was entering its 7th year while I was out here building my life brick by brick. House, business, savings, all earned, nothing handed. And every time he called, it was another quick favor. A few grand here, co-sign this there, cover me until Friday. I should have known better. And yet, like a fool, I kept picking up. Then came the day he pitched me some startup idea, one of his usual big things. I shut it down politely. Told him I wasn't lending again, that I was done being his safety net. He got quiet for a second, then smiled like he wasn't even listening. Come on, man, he chuckled. It's not like you'll even feel it. You've got money now. You're doing great. Help your brother out one last time. That line right there stuck with me. You won't even feel it. Like everything I worked for was just pocket change he could dip into any time. And that's when I should have walked away completely. But I didn't. Because deep down, I still had that stupid hope that maybe, just maybe, this time would be different. I didn't realize until months later that he'd already gone behind my back and took matters into his own hands, using my name. Looking back now, the signs were all there. The missed calls from unfamiliar numbers, the strange letters I kept getting in the mail, most of them marked, final notice, or urgent. At first, I thought it was just spam or some kind of banking error. After all, I kept my finances clean, ran my business straight, didn't take stupid risks. But something kept gnawing at me. One morning I walked into my office, coffee in hand, and saw a thick envelope sitting on my desk. Certified mail. That's never good news. I opened it, and there it was, a loan statement for $85,000, with my full name on the paperwork. My stomach dropped. The lender? Some shady second-tier credit union I'd never even heard of. The worst part? My signature was right there. Or rather, a very sloppy, desperate version of it. My brother's handiwork. That son of a bitch. I sat there for a solid 5 minutes, just staring at it, letting the weight of it sink in. He forged my signature. He went behind my back and took a massive loan under my name. And the crazy part? He didn't even think he needed to tell me. I called him immediately. No answer. Called again. Straight to voicemail. Texted. We need to talk. Now. 3 hours later, he finally called back like nothing happened. Hey man! What's up? I didn't even let him play dumb. I went straight to it. You really thought I wouldn't find out? $85,000 under my name? Are you insane? He chuckled, like it was some joke between brothers. Relax, bro. I got this all figured out. The payments are manageable, and you make enough anyway. You won't even feel it. Besides, it's for the both of us, man. You know I'm gonna make this work. This is just temporary. My blood was boiling. You stole my identity, you forged my goddamn signature, and now you're telling me to relax? He didn't miss a beat. Dude, it's family. Who else am I supposed to turn to? I knew you'd understand. That's why I didn't stress you out about it. Right then, I knew there was no point reasoning. He genuinely believed what he was saying. In his head, I was some safety net, some endless ATM that should be grateful to help. Family. And the worst part? My parents would back him up, just like they always did. I hung up without another word. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from a kind of cold fury I hadn't felt before. I wasn't going to scream, wasn't going to threaten him. No. I was going to handle this my way. Quietly. Permanently. After that call, I didn't sleep much. Not because I was scared, but because my brain wouldn't stop running through the possibilities. My brother wasn't just some reckless idiot, he was entitled. Always had been. Growing up, he was the golden child. No matter what he screwed up, Mom and Dad would clean up after him. Bad grades? He's just creative. Wrecked the car? Boys will be boys. Got fired? That boss was jealous of his potential. Meanwhile, I was the one who worked my ass off, who skipped parties to study, who took the factory job during college breaks to pay off my own tuition. My reward? Being told to. Set a good example for your brother. So when he pulled this lone stunt, I knew exactly what would happen next. The family would close ranks around him like they always did. And like clockwork, the phone rang the next morning. It was my mother. I let it go to voicemail first. Then, curiosity got the better of me, so I listened. Her voice was full of that same old mix of disappointment and forced calm. Honey, I heard you're upset with your brother. Look, he made a mistake, but he did it because he trusts you. You're his big brother, can't you just help him through this? I shook my head and muttered to myself. Of course. There it is. But I called her back. Not to argue, just to make something crystal clear. Mom, he committed fraud. That's not a mistake, that's a felony. She sighed like I was overreacting. Come on, don't make this into something bigger than it needs to be. It's family, we can figure this out. You make good money, you'll barely notice the payments. I held back my temper and answered flatly. No. He's on his own for this one. She started to protest again, but I cut her off. If you want to help him, you open your wallet. Mine's closed. That silence on the other end? That was the first crack. That was the sound of them realizing I wasn't playing the role anymore. My brother thought I'd bend. My parents thought they could guilt-trip me like when I was 20. Not this time. That night, I poured myself a whiskey, sat on the back porch, and started making some calls of my own, to lawyers, financial advisors, credit protection agencies. Because if he thought I'd just sit back and eat this debt, he was about to find out who he was messing with. The next few weeks were honestly some of the most surreal in my life. My brother kept pretending like nothing happened, like we could just sweep this under the rug. He even texted me one night. Bro, seriously, don't be dramatic. It's not like you're gonna go bankrupt because of a few payments. You're doing great, man. Help family out. The arrogance dripping from that message was unbelievable. I didn't reply. I just stared at my phone and thought, you still don't get it, do you? And my parents? Oh, they kept trying to run interference. My dad called me a few days later, acting like he was the peacemaker. Son, listen, your brother's under a lot of pressure. You know how tough life's been for him lately. And you're the strong one. The responsible one. You've always held it together. That's why we need you to step up. I almost laughed. The same speech they've given me my whole life. I took a breath and said calmly, No, Dad. I've stepped up for 30 years. It ends here. He got irritated, his voice got sharp. Don't throw the family away over some paperwork. I cut him off cold. You should have raised him better. That shut him up. That's when I knew they were starting to panic, but they weren't fully there yet. So while they were scrambling, I was busy working the legal side. My lawyer pulled the full credit report, found all the loan details my brother had opened under my name. I hired a forensic accountant to track every single transfer. Turns out it wasn't just one loan, it was multiple. He'd stacked credit lines and used my good name to float his little business venture that had already gone under months ago. The man had no intention of paying any of it back. And what really made my blood boil? He had started pulling money while still smiling in my face, coming over for barbecues, calling me his rock. I sat across from my lawyer, who handed me the final report. You've got enough here to bury him legally if you want to. I nodded. That's exactly what I planned to do. My plan wasn't just to fight back. My plan was to make sure he never tried something like this again. Not with me, not with anyone. I wasn't just his brother anymore. I was about to become his worst nightmare. And you know what really hit me during those weeks? The sheer audacity. My brother didn't just pull this stunt because he was desperate. He pulled it because somewhere along the line, he convinced himself he was entitled to my help. Like my hard work automatically belonged to him. That was the part that burned the most. I remember sitting alone in my kitchen late one night, whiskey in hand, scrolling through old text threads. He had this habit of constantly calling me his big bro's safety net. He actually wrote that once. "You're my safety net, man. You got my back, like always." Like always. And I kept hearing my parents' voices echoing the same message. "He's just struggling. Be patient with him." Nah. Not anymore. Not when your own flesh and blood signs your name to tens of thousands of dollars in debt while smiling at your face at Sunday dinners. That's not struggling, that's betrayal. So while he was out living his fantasy pretending everything was cool, I was meeting with attorneys, accountants, and credit experts, building my case piece by piece. I wasn't even angry at that point. I was cold. Focused. My lawyer, Dave, real no-nonsense guy, leaned back in his chair after reading through all the documents. "Look," he said, "you've got airtight evidence of fraud here. Identity theft, wire fraud, possible bank fraud depending on how some of these forms were submitted." I nodded. "Good. I don't want a slap on the wrist. I want this done right." Dave raised his eyebrows. "You sure? This could blow up his whole life." I looked him dead in the eye and said, "Dave, he blew up his own life when he decided my name was free real estate. That's when we started preparing to freeze the accounts." Quietly. No drama. I pulled back every joint asset I had connected to him. I canceled shared authorizations, closed co-signed cards, flagged my credit report, put fraud alerts everywhere. I wanted him to feel the ice start to spread before the hammer even dropped. And sure enough, the phone calls started. First it was my brother, casual at first. "Hey man, weird, my card just got declined at the gas station. Can you check if the account's fine?" I replied dryly. "Must be a glitch. You should call the bank." And I hung up. Then the text got a little more frantic. "Dude, what's going on? My payments aren't going through." A few days later, I got the first call from my mom. "Honey, your brother says the bank's frozen everything. Is this some misunderstanding?" I stayed cool. "No misunderstanding, Mom. He knows exactly why this is happening." She sighed heavily, her voice dropping into that tired, guilt-tripping tone. "You two need to talk. Family doesn't turn on each other like this." I cut her off right there. "No, Mom. Family doesn't steal identities either. You can either stay neutral or pick a side. But don't call me asking for mercy." That was the first time I ever heard her speechless. It was almost satisfying. They still thought I was just giving him a scare. They had no idea the paperwork was already in motion. The debt buyout was nearly finalized. And the real fun hadn't even started yet. At this point, the wheels were already turning, and he didn't even realize he was slipping deeper into the hole he dug himself. A week after freezing the accounts, I completed the debt buyout. I owned his debt now. Every dollar he owed, his rent arrears, car payments, credit cards, all tied to me. The irony? He was still out there, living like nothing was happening, like the world would just magically fix itself the way it always had before because Big Brother's got it covered. That's the thing with guys like my brother, they mistake patience for weakness. The next call came on a Sunday afternoon. My brother's voice was getting sharper, a little more desperate now. "Man, the bank's trippin'. My landlord says the rent bounced again. You need to help me sort this out before they start eviction talk." I kept my tone flat. "You'll have to handle it, man. I'm not involved in your accounts anymore." Silence. Then that edge in his voice. "Come on, bro, you always said we're family. Don't start acting brand new." And that's when I finally said it. "Family didn't stop you from signing my name on that loan, did it?" Dead silence on his end. You could hear him swallow. Then some half-hearted attempt. "It was a rough patch, man. I was gonna pay it off. You weren't supposed to even notice." I smiled to myself, leaned back, and calmly replied, "Well, I noticed." Click. Call ended. From there, things escalated fast. The landlord filed for eviction within days. His car got repossessed 2 weeks later. His credit score tanked like a rock. That safety net he always counted on. Gone. And here's where it got almost comical. My parents started calling again, but this time, it was my father taking the lead. He left me a voicemail sounding all self-righteous. You think you're better than your own blood now? After everything we've done for you? You're punishing your brother for a mistake? I didn't call back. Instead, I forwarded that voicemail straight to my lawyer. It was just more proof of how deep their enabling went. They weren't mad at him for what he did. They were mad I wasn't cleaning up the mess like usual. Meanwhile, my brother started texting me more frequently, flipping between guilt and aggression. You don't get it, man. I was drowning. You make 6 figures and I can't even keep my lights on. You're seriously gonna let your own brother go homeless? I replied once, short and cold. You made your bed. That's when I finally saw the shift. He realized I wasn't bending this time. He was no longer calling to argue. He was calling because he was afraid. Afraid of the landlord. Afraid of the collection agencies. Afraid of not having anywhere left to turn. And that's exactly where I wanted him. The funny thing is, once people like my brother sense they're losing their grip on you, they start scrambling for whatever scraps of control they've got left. And that's exactly what happened. After weeks of silence, my phone lit up one evening, his name flashing across the screen like some bad habit I finally kicked. Against my better judgment, I answered. He didn't even bother with small talk. Listen, he said, already agitated. We need to fix this. I stayed quiet, letting him fill the dead air. You're blowing this way out of proportion, man. It was a small loan, just temporary. You've got the money. I don't understand why you're acting like I tried to ruin your life. That's when my voice dropped. Calm, steady. You didn't ruin my life, Brian. You just tried to steal from it. Big difference. He scoffed on the other end, frustrated that I wasn't taking his bait. Jesus, you always play the victim like you're some saint. I did what I had to do because you wouldn't help me when I needed you. I cut him off. No, you did what you always do. You made a mess and expected me to sweep it up, like every other time. The silence after that was heavier than anything he'd said. Then he snapped, voice rising. You think you're better than us now? Is that it? Got your fancy job, your house, your wife, and now you can just forget about your own brother? I actually chuckled, not because it was funny, but because it was predictable. No, Brian. I'm not better than you. I'm just done carrying you. I hung up. No shouting match, no drama. Just done. That night, I poured myself a drink, sat on my back porch, and watched the city lights. And for the first time in years, I felt the weight start to lift off my shoulders. But his problems were just beginning. Over the next month, the eviction went through. His car? Gone. Credit score? Wrecked. His phone calls turned from confrontational to pitiful. First, it was daily texts like, Bro, can you just co-sign this one apartment for me? It's a small place, promise. Then came the guilt trips. You're really gonna let your own family live like this? I didn't answer. But I saved every message. Because here's the thing about guys like Brian. They only get desperate when the last bridge burns. And I was holding the match. The more he realized I wasn't biting, the more he panicked. Eventually, my parents circled back in too, like clockwork. Mom left me a voicemail, crying. He's your brother, we raised you better than this, can't you forgive? My father, always the manipulator, sent a text. You're embarrassing this family. We always supported you, now you turn your back on us? I stared at the screen, shaking my head. The same people who called me their biggest disappointment. When I didn't do things their way were now lecturing me about loyalty. And the sick part? They still didn't blame him. They blamed me for not cleaning it up. I blocked their numbers that night. No more conversations. No more second chances. This was his storm to weather now. And I'll be honest, as cold as it sounds, I slept like a baby that night. Because sometimes, the only way to really let someone face the consequences is to finally stop catching them when they fall. A few weeks went by, and the calls finally stopped. Not because my brother had come to his senses, but because his world was collapsing faster than even he could process. I had kept my distance, but word gets around in small business circles. I started hearing little things from mutual contacts. Hey man, you hear about Brian? Lost his job last week. Whole thing's a mess. Turns out, after his eviction, Brian tried to pick up some freelance work under the table, but with his trashed credit and no steady address, nobody wanted to deal with him. The lenders came after him for the defaulted debt I'd purchased, and once I officially froze his accounts, even his phone line got disconnected for non-payment. But that was only the beginning. The real storm came when my parents tried to meddle one last time. I got a call one Sunday afternoon. Not a number I recognized, but I picked up. My father's voice came on, steady but cold. We're done being patient. You need to fix this. He's your brother. Family handles family. I didn't respond right away. I let him sit in his own righteousness for a moment. Then I calmly said, "You mean like when he stole my identity? Or when you both called me a selfish disappointment for not bailing him out the first time? That kind of family?" He snapped back instantly. "Don't talk to me like that. We've supported you your whole life." I couldn't help but laugh. "No, Dad. You tolerated me when I was useful. And now that I've stopped being your safety net, suddenly I'm disrespectful. You want to talk about loyalty? Loyalty isn't a one-way street." He tried one last desperate shot. "You'll regret this one day." I hung up mid-sentence. Let him stew in it. A few days later, the public drama started. Brian, out of options, began posting on social media. Cryptic pity party posts about how some people forget where they came from. And money changes people. He was fishing for sympathy, and a few distant relatives even reached out, trying to guilt me into helping. "You should at least talk to him," my cousin messaged. "He's not well." My reply was short. "He wasn't well when he stole from me either." They didn't have much to say after that. And then came the part that, honestly, I didn't see coming: his meltdown at my office. I was in a meeting, fully professional, running my business like always, when my assistant knocked quietly. Your brother's downstairs." Security called. "He's not calm." I sighed, pushed back my chair, and walked out. And there he was, standing in the lobby, disheveled, eyes wild, voice rising. "You think you're some big shot now? You think you can just throw me away? After everything I've done for you?" Security was holding him back, but he kept shouting. Everyone was watching, clients, employees, the whole damn building saw him lose it. I walked right up to him, staying calm. "Brian, you did this. Not me. You're here because you couldn't handle your own decisions." He was trembling, desperate. "I just needed a little help. You act like I killed someone." I looked him straight in the eyes. "You killed the trust, Brian. That's worse." And with that, I turned and walked back to my office, leaving him screaming in the lobby as security escorted him out. That moment? That was when the last piece of guilt finally died inside me. I was done. Fully done. After that scene in my office lobby, you'd think he'd finally hit rock bottom. But guys like my brother, they always think they've got one more card to play. A week later, my mother showed up at my house unannounced. I hadn't seen her in months. She stood on my porch with this fake little smile, holding a Tupperware container like we were back in some happy family sitcom. "I thought you might want some homemade lasagna," she said, like everything that had happened was just some little misunderstanding. I didn't invite her in. I stood there in the doorway, arms crossed, waiting for her to get to the real reason. Sure enough, after a few seconds of awkward small talk, she sighed dramatically and said, "You know, I raised you better than this. Family forgives, son. You're holding on to bitterness." I couldn't help but let out a small laugh. "Bitterness? Mom, he stole my identity. He forged my signature. He wrecked my credit. That's not a mistake. That's a felony." She shook her head like I was overreacting. "He was desperate. You're doing so well, you could have helped him out instead of making him suffer like this." That was her angle. Always was. My success meant I was supposed to carry everybody else's failures. I looked her dead in the eyes and said, "The problem is, Mom, you never taught him consequences. You always expected me to absorb the damage. Well, not anymore." She tried again, voice trembling now. "He's your brother. Blood is blood. One day you'll regret turning your back on him." I stepped forward slightly, keeping my voice calm. "No. What I regret is letting this go on for so many years. And if you think showing up here with lasagna is gonna fix that, you're more delusional than I thought." She finally dropped the act. Her face hardened, eyes cold. "Fine. Just remember who was there for you when you were nobody." I nodded slowly. "Oh, I remember, Mom. I remember every guilt trip, every time you told me I was never enough. That's why I don't owe you or him a damn thing." And with that, I shut the door gently. Not slammed. Just firm. Decisive. That was the last time I saw her in person. After that, the calls stopped. The texts stopped. The flying monkeys, the cousins, the mutual friends, all stopped trying to play middleman once they realized I wasn't budging. I wasn't going to fund his screw-ups ever again. What came next? That was entirely on my brother. And trust me, it only got uglier from here. A few weeks after Mom's little ambush at my front door, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't pick up, but something told me to answer. It was him, my brother. His voice was shaky, but he tried to play it cool at first. "Hey man. Look, can we talk? No apology, no acknowledgement of everything he pulled. Just straight to business. I didn't say anything. Just waited. That silence? It eats at people. He finally cracked. Listen, I know things got a little out of hand, but I was hoping maybe you could help me out here. I raised an eyebrow even though he couldn't see me. Help you out? Like when you took out that loan in my name? That kind of help? He went quiet for a second, then sighed. Come on, man. I was in a rough spot. You have no idea how much pressure I was under. And you've always had it easy. College job, house. You think any of that came easy to me? The nerve. The complete lack of accountability. That was the problem. My whole life I was supposed to feel guilty for doing well. And every time he screwed up, it was my job to fix it. Not this time. I kept my voice steady. You made your choices. And you forged my signature. That wasn't pressure, that was theft. He snapped a little. I said I was sorry, man. What more do you want? My life's falling apart here. I finally said. You still don't get it. You haven't even begun to face consequences yet. But you're about to. He tried to sound tough. What's that supposed to mean? I didn't answer. Let him stew in it. Because behind the scenes, things were already in motion. See, while he was still pretending this was just a family spat, I'd hired a debt recovery firm. Bought his entire loan portfolio. Legally, it was mine now. Every payment, every penalty, every overdue notice, all under my control. And trust me, I wasn't offering him any family discount. That first paycheck garnishment hit him like a freight train. Suddenly, his accounts were bleeding money. His car got repoed. His credit tanked even further. Every time he tried to get a new gig or rent an apartment, my name was sitting there on the record, holding the debt. And he couldn't outrun it. After a few months of this, he finally broke and called me again, this time at 2 a.m., completely desperate. Please, man. I'm drowning. I can't keep up with this. I'll do anything. Just give me a little breathing room. I sat there for a second, listening to him beg. And in that moment, I finally saw it click for him. The weight he wanted me to carry? He was now carrying it himself. I said, calm as ever. You'll work for me. Full time. Every penny you owe goes straight back to me. You steal my name, you work off the debt under it. That's your only option. He paused. You serious? Dead serious. That's when the real payback began. The first day he showed up for work was one of those moments you don't forget. He pulled into the lot driving his beat-up old Civic, the car he had to downgrade to after the repo. He got out, dressed like he was going to some corporate office, cheap suit, nervous smile. Like if he played nice I might cut him a break. But this wasn't a family reunion. This was business now. He walked into my office trying to stay casual. Hey bro. So where do you want me to start? I didn't even look up from my desk for a moment. When I finally did, I kept my voice even. First, drop the bro, you're an employee here now. You'll refer to me as sir in the office. You got that? His face twitched. I could see him fighting it, biting down on every instinct to argue or crack a joke. But he needed the money too badly. Yes, sir. That was a first. And I'll be honest, it felt damn good. For the next few months, I gave him every miserable job I could legally hand him. Filing invoices. Running errands. Sorting shipping mistakes. Picking up coffee orders for interns half his age. And every 2 weeks when payroll hit, nearly 70% of his check went straight to pay off the debt he'd forged in my name. He was basically working just to breathe, nothing more. And every time he tried to pull some sob story, I shut it down. Like the day he came into my office trying to plead. Look, man, I've been good. I've shown up every day, I'm doing my part. Can't you at least reduce some of the interest? You don't need all this, you're doing fine. I leaned back, looked him dead in the eyes and said, and you didn't need to steal my name, but you did anyway. Consider this, education. He didn't argue after that. The thing is, people like him, they only learn when they finally feel it. I wasn't being cruel. I was giving him something my parents never did, consequences. And speaking of them, they came knocking too. Once word got out that my brother was working for me, my parents tried to get involved again. One afternoon my mother actually showed up at my office unannounced. You've made your point, okay? This is cruel. He's your brother, she hissed, eyes full of that same fake concern she always pulled when they needed something. I stayed seated. Funny. Didn't seem to bother either of you when he stole from me. You're only here because you lost control. She opened her mouth like she was going to say something else, but for once, she didn't have anything left. I waved to security and had her escorted out calmly. That was the last time she tried that. Eventually, after nearly 2 years, my brother had finally worked off enough of the debt that I could see some part of him had been broken, not in the way where he was ruined, but in the way where he finally understood who he really was. And who I wasn't going to be for him anymore. When the last payment cleared, he came into my office one final time, voice quiet, eyes low. Is that it? I nodded. Debt's cleared. You're free to go. He stood there awkward for a moment, like he wanted to say thank you or maybe ask for something else, but I didn't give him that opening. I just said, take care of yourself. And this time? Handle your own damn life. He left. And I swear to you, man, the moment that door closed behind him, the weight that left my chest was something I can't even put into words. For the first time in years, I wasn't carrying his failures anymore. They were his. And I could finally get back to living my life without cleaning up anyone else's mess.